for another walking, talking, ask me anything. Yes, we are being dutiful, we are being religious, we are ritualizing the AMA by doing one every single week on a Wednesday before I go gaming. We're getting a lot of chatter done. We get to talk about games, we get to talk about media, we get to talk about me, and of course we get to talk about the various videos I've been putting out lately. Who here recently watched Who Put Mute on Uncle Marcus last night's Let's Play? There's a game I don't know if I will ever be returning to. I just guess it depends on viewer demand. If you really enjoyed the Let's Play of Who Muted Uncle Marcus, do be sure to let me know. I think what you might describe Who Muted Uncle Marcus as is a slow motion nervous breakdown for me. A 3-hour Let's Play, I don't think I've ever done one quite that long, where I steadily lose my mind because of the game I'm playing. It was an experience, let's call it that, and not one I'm sure I will return to. So yes, we are here once again. Please always, as ever, leave thumbs up to boost the algorithm, boost engagement, make this video show up in more people's subscription panels or whatever. Apparently that's what it takes now. You've got to leave thumbs up, you've got to chat in the comments in order to make these videos propagate. But you know all of that. I mention it pretty much every time we do one of these. You know all of that. Let's get talking about games like Vampire, because I know you love hearing me talk about Vampire. I think most of you only want to hear me talk about Vampire, and that's fine. I think that's what the foundations this channel was built on, were blood and ash and ancient undead, and I am all in favour of talking a little more about them. Oddly, even though it's a game I'm not running or playing so much these days, or writing, it is something I never tire of talking about. It's a funny thing. World of Darkness has been such a major part of my gaming life, probably my wider life as well. Certainly when I was younger, a lot of my social circles were built around World of Darkness enthusiasts, and my interest in the World of Darkness and Vampire the Masquerade in particular, but also Raid the Oblivion and Werewolf the Apocalypse, really centered my hobby, I would say. It centered me. My interest in those games was integral to my staying interested in role-playing. So I have no doubt I'll be going back to those games at some point. Hello, 7 viewers. I know 7 doesn't sound like much, but it's quite a lot when they just spring out of nowhere. Please do thumbs up this video, not because I'm talking about anything particularly profound, but because when you do, it propagates. It makes it appear in other people's notifications when you do. And if we want a lively chat section, we're going to need some thumbs up. So, I see we have already got a comment. What be... This is from Mr. Adam Granger. What be your favourite non-London UK setting for a campaign? Good question. I don't set many games in the UK, you know. Around the area I live in, Salisbury, the south, and I say that because I've run a fair amount of dystopian games, and it's always quite easy to run dystopia in an area you know. It's something they always encourage you to do with games like Mutant Year Zero. I did it with Broken Rooms as well. The characters had to get to Salisbury Plain to prevent a biological weapon going off in a post-apocalyptic setting, as if things couldn't get any worse. I've always enjoyed also setting games in some of the more industrial parts of the country. Sheffield is a place I've set a few games, mainly after watching Threads for the first time. I don't know if any of you have seen Threads. It is a 1980, I'm guessing 1984 or 1982 movie, nuclear war, where the city of Sheffield and the vast majority of the rest of Britain, but we only really see Sheffield and its outskirts, gets hit by at least one nuclear bomb. And it's a very good setting for flavour. It's a very good movie. I do like Threads. I think, well, as much as one can like a movie about a nuke going off. Timely, I suppose. So yeah, Sheffield. I've set some games in Glasgow, or Glasgow, as some Americans like to say. So what else have we got? Adam Brown says, I watched the Let's Play for a bit, but it got too surreal. I was worried we might enter Videodrome territory. Yeah. Who Muted Uncle Marcus was, as I say, a nervous breakdown in slow motion for me. 3 hours of playing that game. It's more than I typically spend playing a game in one sitting. So it was compelling, but also deeply frustrating in its own way. I mentioned it in the Let's Play, but I'm probably not going to encourage people to check it out. I think it was fun, but it's a long one. Central issue with Who Muted Uncle Marcus, the game I was playing yesterday on this channel, was the randomness. So the story of the game is your Uncle Marcus has been poisoned. He will be dead by the end of the game, unless you can work out the poison that was used on him and who in your family poisoned him. It's an FMV game, and the central premise is it's a family quiz being held via Zoom. And as you team up with people and oppose people in this quiz, you can ask them questions about the fateful meeting when Marcus got poisoned and deduce who the poisoner is. The problem is either I am very stupid, and I don't think I am, or there is no rhyme or reason to how you actually accumulate evidence in that game. It seems to be you team up with Lottie and just click on the button that says, ask her about the meeting, and she just says to you, I don't want to talk about it. And you've lost an entry. You answer a question in the quiz, you answer it incorrectly, and that time Lottie says, do you remember did you hear what happened at the meeting? Or you answer it correctly, and you hear something completely different. And it is all pre-arranged. It's not RNG. You don't just get answers at random. It's just the route to the answers in each case is not in any way calculable. You cannot determine how to get your evidence. It's just a question of exhausting every single question before Uncle Marcus dies. And given that he dies about 25 minutes into the game, that's quite tricky. So you end up having to restart and play again and just ask different questions, and then he dies. Or you cure him, but if you haven't accused someone because you don't know who it is, the game ends, you restart it, answer different questions or ask different questions. So I think the main takeaway from Who Muted Uncle Marcus, the Let's Play on this channel from yesterday, was nicely shot game. Again, it reeks of lockdown because all of the actors seem to be filming from their own homes or isolated in studios. Not on their phones necessarily, because the camera quality is too good. And all of the performances are strong, the writing is good, but the game design is fundamentally flawed in a way that 5 Dates, my other FMV adventure recently, was not. And it sounds ridiculous that I'd say that, because 5 Dates is a dating sim. I can't say I've got a great deal of history with dating sims. I played significantly more murder mysteries. But at least in 5 Dates, there was the possibility of picking up signals from your prospective partners as to what they would be interested in, what they would appreciate being told, what they want to hear about you, the sorts of questions you should ask them. You know, what is a way of really botching the date? What's the way of getting it right? And yeah, in Who Muted Uncle Marcus, there was none of that, to my mind. But maybe you've had a different experience. If you played that game, let me know and see whether your experience was different. We've got lots of questions now. Okay. Mr. Adam Granger. Sorry, that's my West Country accent coming through in my typing. Well, that's all right. I quite like the West Country. I would hesitate to say I'm from the West Country. Although when I was younger, there were a lot of children who, for whatever reason, thought I spoke with a strong West Country accent. And sometimes I slip into a more rural Wiltshire accent. It's more because I tend to place emphasis on practically every syllable in a word. And I tend to pronounce things fairly phonetically. And that means I might occasionally say shire instead of shire, for example. So I'm from Wiltshire, although Wiltshire is the more commonly accepted pronunciation. And so when you hear something like Wiltshire, you think farmer. I am certainly not from Somerset or one of those other West Country counties. Gloucester, good lord. All right, hello to the Northwest Harrison. Performance Check says, always loved your work. I'm about to run a new vampire game in London. Any tips for running games in a modern city with phones and hashtags and TikToks? Loving these Ask Me Anything walks. Well, thank you very much, Performance Check. My advice is don't be freaked out or alarmed by the proliferation of mobile technology. It's something we really emphasize in Curseborn, but I think is equally valid for Vampire or another World of Darkness or Chronicles of Darkness game. Just because someone catches you on their phone doing something that breaks the masquerade, let's say, doesn't mean anyone's going to believe it. Doesn't mean their video is going to get more than 6 views. And doesn't mean the person filming you is going to believe what they're seeing. Essentially, that kind of thing becomes a subplot, if not the major plot, all of its own, because maybe, just maybe, out of the 6 viewers who see that video, 2 of them believe what they see. One of them decides they're going to become some kind of conspiracy theorist, start digging into the truth. The other one works for the government, sets up a task force to track down creatures like you. Others might think, and this is a oft trotted out trope, they think something like, wow, the special effects for that upcoming episode of Doctor Who are a lot better than they used to be. And of course you'll get other people saying it's a prank. Most of the time, cynicism will be the greeting that people who film the undead at work get. And they will be received with, yeah, this is a prank though, isn't it, bruh? This is this is some kind of wind up, a joke, a filter on your phone. You just caught some drama students performing in the park, that kind of thing. So, in other words, don't sweat it. It isn't as big a deal as people think. Now, a lot of the time I hear horror doesn't work in a modern setting because everyone has a mobile phone. Therefore, anyone can call for help at any time. But I'm sure any of you will know that even in somewhere like the UK, there are still plenty of black spots where phones do not have reception, especially when you're out in the countryside. And I'm pretty close to it. Right now I've got 5G and that's how you can see me and hear me, I hope clearly. But I know, having walked this area many, many times, not being a driver, that just about half a mile in that direction there is no signal at all. So what you can do is boost tension. You can actually have, if you're playing a game, let's say, of Call of Cthulhu in the modern era or Delta Green, you do have signal, and then all of a sudden, you don't have signal. Where's it gone? Who shut it off? Is there a jamming device? Now all of a sudden your hacker has something they need to find, because those are always the characters who are kind of left decking by themselves in these games. Give them something to do. Try and get the signal back up and running. Vince Reyes says, hello, Poe, from the Philippines. Hi, Vince. Livia Lautenschlager says, hi. I do hope I said your surname correctly. I tend to be quite good with German, Austrian names. I guess you could be Leitenschlager. We'll find out. Vudan says, yay, I've caught you live. Apologies if there's something you've covered before. Will there be an Onyx Path cast in the upcoming Onyx Path Con? Good question. I don't believe so. I don't think we're doing an Onyx Path cast. But you know what? I will speak to my co-hosts about that. Because we're doing so many recordings, what we'll probably do is upload some of those panels at the Onyx Path Con to the Onyx Path cast. So you get to listen to them if you're not a YouTube fan. I mean, most panels don't require anyone to have access to their, screen. You can just listen to our lovely voices, talk about the games you're interested in. So, good question though. Could be nice to have some kind of reunion with 3 or 4 hosts, depending on the era of Onyx Pathcast that you're a fan of. So I'm just going to let a van move out of the way. Adam Brown says and asks, this is a busy road. Project Zomboid was great though. What's your go-to system for tabletop zombies? And what's your view of I Am Zombie? I ran it using the pre-release playtest kit. Innovative but unwieldy. Well, I love Project Zomboid. I thought that was an absolutely fantastic game, and I'm still playing it. Very much recommend it. If you want a taste for what that includes, check it out on this channel. There's 3 episodes of Project Zomboid. The 3rd one, I die at the end of it. But I might come back and do another run through. And speaking of running, I might add some sprinting zombies to it. As for which system I use for zombie games, I don't run many zombie apocalypse games these days. I feel I've tapped that well a little too often, well, I guess 10 plus years ago. I was a big fan of All Flesh Must Be Eaten. The uni system is a very utility system. It's not very flashy, just kind of does what you need. These days, I would probably use something like BRP, so the Call of Cthulhu system, and instead of sanity, I'd give you a shorter meter, which is something like infection resistance, and you can spend points to withstand infection, at least until it runs out, at which point next time you get bitten, scratched, whatever, you are a zombie. As for I Am Zombie, I think it's a beautiful game. Mark Kelly's art in it is amazing, but I don't think it's a really fluid game, if I'm honest. It doesn't play easily. I believe Mark Kelly may be intending on remaking it, possibly with the Borg engine. I'm not sure at this point. I've got some, I wouldn't say bad memories of I Am Zombie, but I recall one of the creators behind it being very hot on taking people's ideas from the fan community and thinking just crediting them is enough. I don't need to pay them for that. And that's never sat right with me. I don't like the idea of taking people's work and not paying them. So there's some behind the scenes stuff I'm not a fan of. But speaking of not paying people, just today, in fact you'll probably be able to find it now using the link in the video description below, we have released the print-on-demand version of Lost City of the Oracle's Amulet. Yes, I talk about it every week. It is a game that needs to be spoken about because it is a game entirely authored by children, incredibly talented children. I worked with 2 classes and their volunteers, numbering around 30, came together and came up with this fantastic game book, an RPG that you can bolt on to Cyclops' Cave. Lost City of the Oracle's Amulet is available on Drive-Thru RPG, and it should now be available in print on demand, if not now, in an hour. And it will be pay what you want, print on demand as well. So I've mentioned it before, I'm going to mention it again, because you can buy this for as low as $1. Technically you can take it for free, but I would appreciate if you put some money in. And why did I say not getting paid? Well, we can't pay children. That's child labour. So the reason it's pay what you want is we're not trying to draw a profit on this. This isn't a big money maker. This is a project I worked on with children for fun, and the work they turned out was just absolutely fantastic. So pay what you want. Try and pay a little at least so that we can cover the cost of production and maybe do one of these projects again with different children. And leave a rating and review if you haven't already done so. I keep saying this, but one day these children are going to grow up, they're going to go on Google and they'll type in the name of that book they co-wrote, and I want them to see loads of positive ratings, loads of positive reviews. I want them to see that and feel proud and happy and be able to think, wow, writing RPGs is fun. And that's entirely dependent on you. So please, please, please consider doing that. It is pay what you want, so you're not going to be breaking the bank to get this. All I ask is you put a little bit of money towards it and leave a rating and review 24 hours later, if not a bit later than that. So, what else do we have here in the chat? Okay, performance check. Great inspiration for the game and immediately feel better equipped with story potential. Thank you, my pleasure. Games by Mark Wolf. Do you find that your players seek out how to defeat their antagonist, or do you more frequently give those details an NPC exposition? I find players try and figure it out because it's part of the fun, especially in a game like, let's say, Call of Cthulhu. I like puzzle bosses. I think puzzle bosses are the most fun in games because it gives the player something to do other than just run up to it and hit it with a sword or shoot it with a gun. If a boss has, let's say, 3 elements and you've got to count them all off, you know, you find the ruby of truth, the sword of justice, and the shield of whatever the fuck. And once you've got all 3 of these, you've reduced the boss's overall strength to a third of what it was. Well, now the players feel like they've had a meaningful impact. It doesn't even matter if the combat is then short or however you beat them. It could be a social interaction. The way of doing that is so much more interesting, and I find players really enjoy that kind of thing. Link the Vampire says, last night's Let's Play was nuts. Just caught up. Yes, who muted Uncle Marcus? It should have been who poisoned Uncle Marcus, but fair enough. I just caught up on your Curseborn character creation when I got the notification for that. Talk about, and now for something completely different. Yeah, a bit of a difference from Curseborn to who muted Uncle Marcus, but I will say, if you're looking for an unhinged, toxic family dynamic for your game of Curseborn, checking out my Let's Play of Who Muted Uncle Marcus is probably a decent place to go. I mean, I think all of them are cursed of their own doing. All of them are horrible people, and none of them deserve to live. Voodoo says, okay, excellent. Mecha King Kong says V20 for life. Mr. Adam Granger, returning to the West Country, what monsters or other creatures would you add to a West Country themed campaign? Bog monsters, moor-based monsters, obviously black hounds, but they can go pretty much anywhere in the British countryside. Everyone wants to claim the damn black hound and black cats and so on. Werewolves. I ran a Pendragon game that sent the knights towards the court of Duke Gaulois, or Gaulois, of Cornwall, and Castle Terrabil, I think, rather than Tintagel. And in that, I always litter the countryside with various fey and environmental hazards. Bog creatures, especially things like grubs beneath the surface, large insects, water leapers, nucleavae, things like that. That really works. It really works within a Devonshire kind of area. And the closer you get down to Cornwall, the more fey it gets, because, of course, the farther and farther you are from civilization. Awkward GM Corbin, given we had the trend of zombie horror in the 2010s, what would you say is the current horror trend we are seeing currently? Oh, that's a good question. What is the horror trend, and how out of tune from it am I? I don't know, Corbin. That is a really good question. What is the current horror trend? Because movies seem to be all over the place, and it used to be that you could tap into TV shows and movies and see what was popular. And we still get vampire movies, we still get haunted house movies, we still get kind of urban horror, old woman living in the walls horror, and the one thing I would say is zombies have definitely dropped off from the sphere of interest. But again, I would recommend something like Project Zomboid if that's your thing. That is a fantastic video game and serves me all my needs for zombie horror. Link the Vampire asks, for Curseborn characters, is there a setup you'd recommend for new TTRPG players, like how for babies first D&D a lot of folks suggest playing a fighter? That's a good question. What do I think is the simplest option in a way in Curseborn? I would say the simplest kind of character in Curseborn is probably one of the dead. I would go for a Fury. It's very easy to play a crow type who exists beyond the grave for the sake of vengeance and anger, righteous anger. I don't think the mechanics are terribly difficult either. The only nuance you really need to keep on top of is how to heal when you're one of the dead, which is in the revised manuscript. And I'd say that's about. Oh, and of course possession rules. What happens to you if you're outside of a host body for too long. But I think the dead is a good choice there. Mecha King Kong says Lacroix Sheriff versus Kadir. Who wins? Kadir, obviously. The Lacroix Sheriff in Bloodlines was taken out by a neonate. Corbin, it would be interesting if there were projects like the one you just did with a school and have the proceeds go to charity or to help get the teachers pencils, but probably difficult to orchestrate. It is difficult to orchestrate making money on a book that was written by children. And that's something I looked into legally, and ultimately various waivers were signed. The property you've written is now the ownership of Onyx Path. However, we're not going to be selling this with the intention of making a profit, etc., etc. As soon as you start intending on making money and giving it to someone, whether it's a school or charity or whatever, you can get involved in a lot of child labor laws, whether you're doing it with the best of intentions or not. So my recommendation would be, if you ever want to do something like that, just do it for the love of it and set it up as pay what you want, if not free. The only reason we've got this pay what you want is to cover the cost of production. We're not expecting anyone to start paying $50 for a copy of these books, and so far no one has, so that works out. But yeah, check out Lost City of the Oracle's Amulet if you haven't. It is pay what you want, and the more ratings and reviews we can add, the better. Archlich magnetic pole flip horror is on the way, I fear. Well, we won't have to wait long to see what that's like. Mascot horror is very popular. Yeah, there is a lot of franchise horror right now. Right, I'm going to wrap up after these next few questions. Mark Wolf says, have you seen the Hunter series from Bruva Alpha Busa? And if so, what do you think? He's the channel who used to do the 40k If the Emperor Has a TTS Device series. I know, I have never heard of that person before. Is that Hunter the Reckoning or Hunter the Vigil? I genuinely do not know who Bruva Alpha Busa is. Vudon says, got a dash. Well, thank you very much for watching. Performance check. Apologies if this is an obvious question. Is there a particular video breakdown about Curseborn? Just learned of this game. I've got loads of Curseborn videos on this channel, including a What is Curseborn? So if you check out, there's a playlist that you'll be able to access through my main channel, which has all my Curseborn videos on. And just check out the What is Curseborn. I think there's a What do you play in Curseborn? How do you play Curseborn? I've done all of those. But in short, it is a game where you are playing accursed creatures, mortals who have become supernatural, or creatures from other planes who have entered ours and must pretend to be human. And there are lots of playable options, but centrally you've got the Hungry, that's your vampire type, the Primal, those are your shapeshifters, sorcerers, fairly apparent, the Dead, and finally the Outcasts, who I think is probably the most interesting to a lot of people. Adam Brown says, I can read between the lines on that one. I'm working on a cultist RPG opposing ideological groups competing to raise their respective savior or abomination. Any tips? Any tips on playing a cultist-based game? Yeah, the main one is give them aspects of positivity. What do I mean by that? Well, even when you're playing the worst of the worst horror games, your players will become detached from their characters if all they're doing is monstrous deeds. If all you're doing is murdering, kidnapping, and not necessarily in that order, sacrificing and so forth, you will start seeing your character more as a monster that's unrelatable. So it's far more interesting if your cultist has a family they need to support, or a job they still need to go to, or they're being investigated by the police, or their landlord wants the rent, that kind of thing. It adds a ground level to the horror that makes it relatable. It can even be darkly comic at times, but I would suggest that because it makes it a lot more interesting. And also try and aim for a historic setting, because that gives you a lot of material to play with outside of the main plot. Okay, and Mark Wolf says that actual play, that Let's Play or whatever he mentioned, Hunter the Reckoning, well, I'm not a huge fan of Hunter the Reckoning. I haven't really read the new version of Hunter the Reckoning either, so I probably won't be checking it out, but I appreciate the recommendation. Okay, I am going to head off now, but to say thank you very much for watching. As ever, these AMAs always draw a good crowd. Do check out Lost City of the Oracle's Amulet. It is now available in print on demand as of today. It is still pay what you want, so please pay what you want. Please pay something, but pay what you want. And once done, leave a rating and review. Let these children see that their work is as excellent as I think it is. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.